It's time to introduce our keynote speaker, and I'm super excited. I think many of you may have already been familiar, but we have some time to really hear from him and learn more about collaboration and how that works. So, Milenko Matanovic, I did it. I've been calling him the wrong name forever, but it's okay, he said, and so I'm grateful for his flexibility. But Milenko he founded the Pomegranate Center in 1986, believing that magic happens when art, creative thinking, and community join forces. Since then, he's worked with hundreds of communities across the country and abroad, collaborated with communities to build 60 gathering places, spoken at more universities and community gatherings and conferences than he can remember, and taught 1,500 remarkable individuals in the Pomegranate Center approach to building community. Milenko has become an internationally recognized leader in collaboration. He is an artist and community builder focusing on turning people's differences into collective insights. In these days of an increasingly divided and fragmented community, Milenko reinvents the democratic processes based on mutual respect and learning. He believes that when it comes to community and society, together we always know more. Milenko uses his creativity to prepare communities for the future. By combining his talents as a thinker, educator, and artist, he hopes to create a world where neither nature nor human talents are wasted and where collaboration becomes the norm. He lives to help communities become wiser by working together to find new and creative ways to push good ideas into action, just like we did today. I want you to please help me welcome Milenko to our stage.
What an honor it is to be here with you again. And what a great team you have to lead you into this important and essential work. The future will be different. We know that. And what shapes that future is a lot of political decisions, a lot of corporate decisions, but today we're focusing on us, the people, as the third leg of the triangle. Okay? Some of you participated in this painting that we did together at your last gathering. How many of you have put your signature on the bottom of that painting? Great. It was a mini exercise of how something beautiful can be created in a short period of time. I also did training for some of you. Can I see by show of hands how many of you went through my training? Quite a few of you. Thank you for that. What I'll share with you today, you may have heard before from me. You already know it. I know that many of you know these things. I will state the simplest facts about collaboration. And my goal is to simply invite you to think along with me to see how this idea of collaboration plays itself out in our personal lives, in our organizations, and in the life of our society and the world. So I invite you to think along with me. All right. If we would take collaboration seriously, we would know that we're all smart in some areas and need new information in many others. These days, I make it a point to meet people with knowledge different from my own. And I invite you to do the same, because it's comfortable to be with those who are like me. I know that. I enjoy a glass of wine with my friends, and I don't need to work at it. But to understand the world that we now live in, the world presents itself as incredibly complex. And to pretend that my knowing will offer answers to everything is not the right thing any longer. It simply doesn't work. And so, if I accept that I do not know about the great majority of what makes the world work, I open myself to collaboration. Without that, it's almost impossible. When we vote for political leaders, when we buy products, think about who invites you into the equation and who tells you what to think. I grew up in a socialist country, and our leaders told us what to think. And it collapsed. It cannot work because it depends on people to add their thoughts, just like you added to each other's thoughts during this brief exercise this morning. If we were to take collaboration seriously, we would know that collaboration is not possible between fixed ideas. So whenever you catch yourself in a conversation with your family, with your children, with your friends, with your partners and collaborators, colleagues in your work, and you are so certain that your idea is the only one that matters, most likely collaboration will not happen. It's impossible, because it's a fluid state. It's not billiard balls hitting each other. It's like porous surfaces allowing something to enter into each other's soul. It's a different state of being. And so, if you're fixed, if you're so certain about something, I ask you that under the right conditions, when something of common value is at stake, you open the doors, you open the windows to that certainty and allow new insights to enter. Without that, collaboration is simply a concept, and the reality of collaboration is not going to happen. We would also know that collaboration is not possible when our actions contradict our stated intent. What do I mean by that? I'm sure you found yourselves in the moments in your discussions, in your deliberations, where you agreed to the idea, but you disagreed on the method with which that idea was presented or argued for or fought for. And suddenly the way we go about the business becomes part of what we are doing together. As an artist, I have a suspicion that sometimes we rely too much on ideas and not enough on what artists would call patterns. In other words, I may have an idea for a great painting, but if the brushstrokes are not true to that idea, the painting will not be good. And the same applies to our conversations. If the words we choose to form sentences and paragraphs contradict that intent, we will dampen the possibility of collaboration. I love this quote from a cartoon that I saw. And I love it because I found myself in many moments when I thought exactly that. I would work with people, and I would think just what this caption says. Sometimes I think that the collaborative process would work better without you. How often we find ourselves in those moments where we find it's impossible to work with someone because of the reasons that I already explained. Fixed ideas, certainty, absolute certainty, unwillingness to invite anyone into our thinking. Those are the obstacles to collaboration. So, how does this play itself out? I will have a few suggestions for you. You would say more often, you would use words like in this sentence, this is how I see it, and how do you see it? So you can still be certain about certain things that you know. You can be fully an author of an idea. But if you add that second part to the sentence, and how do you see it? Your certainty now gets mashed together with another person's insights. And so when you are struggling in some collaborative process, I found just this simply, how do you see this same situation? Invites another perspective. And the wonderful thing is that we all have different insights, that we all have something outside of my experience to add to the truth of the moment. And suddenly I can move forward in a way that says, it will work for me and it will work for you. Now imagine opening that circle up a little bit further, and you create conditions for collaboration. Or you would say, I do not understand yet what you're saying. Please explain it to me. Please say more. And how often that simplest of sentences can open the door to start to understand the situation. As you can see, I'm not promoting the idea that in collaboration our individuality disappears. It actually is the other way around. Our individuality is needed for collaboration. It's like in a jazz music making, it's not about the group playing together or soloists taking a riff. It's about both all the time. But the solo needs to fit into that larger context. We need to know what tune we're playing, what beat we're playing, what scale we're playing it in. And then I can take a solo. But before that time, it will be just cacophony. It just noises that we don't know what to do with. What I found in my work with communities, that often we invite the idea of collaboration too late in the game. So somebody already made decisions, and then they would say, hey, do you want to collaborate with me? Without explaining those decisions. And so when you think about collaboration for your projects, for your work, think about this very precious moment right at the beginning where the essence, the DNA, the soul of the project is trying to announce itself. And I found in my work with communities that most established leaders, like in government, do not like that idea. They like to, they distrust that people could come up with the right definition of an intent for the project. And so they prefer an open house. Let us, the wise ones, decide, and then we'll open it up to the community for their input. But when you think about that pattern, most of the important decisions have been made. And most of the questions that people may bring to those initial moments are not being asked. So for example, every city in Washington state needs to create something called comprehensive plan update every 10 years. And this is the year when that was happening for the city of Bellevue, where I live. And I attended the meeting. But the questions I had about the future of my city were not at the table. I could not ask them. So for example, do we envision the future where cars may not be necessary? Do we envision the future where affordable housing and wealthy homes could coexist on the same road? There was no place in that public engagement meeting for those questions. What we could decide is, do we want 14% of open space or 15% of open space? Those were kind of choices predetermined already by somebody else. So I call this the poetry of the beginning. That every project, whether it's your initiatives, whether it's a gathering place that we would create with communities, whether it's a new clinic, whether it's a new library, whether it's a new campus for activities that you want to create, think about that precious moment right at the beginning where collaboration is needed the most. What I found, as I already said, is governments like to invite people into collaborative processes later on. Should our sidewalk be 8 or 9 feet wide? But there are no questions to say, why not have it 20 feet wide? Why not shrinking the road? Why not reducing the parking spaces? Why? This is where your soulful qualities would ask the important questions right at the beginning. So the poetry of the beginning is like finding a DNA for something that wants to be created. And as an artist, I know, once I understand what I want to create artistically, it tells me everything about the colors, about the details, about the smallest parts of this, because the DNA tells me what to do. Without that understanding, I'll be all over the place. So think about capturing that moment at the beginning of your initiatives, and how, if you have the courage to identify that soul of the project, it will inform all future decisions and make it easier. Less mental imbalance, less therapy needed later on if you do that work. So I found this to be the missing part of our collaborative work, that we do not take enough time at the beginning to find that soulful, poetic part of the project that many people can say, yes, this is what we need. So, I already mentioned this. Any notion that collaboration means muting individuality is wrong. It is more that we understand that my individuality, my genius, my artistry is in a circle. As an artist, I realized that there are artists who want to climb pyramids and get to the top of the pyramid. That's what their artistic journey is. And then there are artists who want to stand in a circle and join hands with others, with doctors and dentists and healers and builders and firemen and so on. To be in a circle is different than climbing the pyramids. Climbing the pyramids, you will want to get on top to be the top dog. Standing in a circle does not allow you to do that. And so, but the quality of the circle will depend on how great you are individually. And so please, don't think about collaboration as muting your genius. If you do it right, collaboration is about enhancing your genius, because you, standing in a circle, will turn to somebody and say, can you take the solo? You can lead us into the next phase of the work, because you're the best soloist we have in our jazz band right now. And that's a different kind of empowerment than taking control of the situation. So, the final thought here is that collaboration is therefore the art of joining many goals into the single project. And that is only possible when your individuality is empowered enough that you can add your insights into this circle. When you can say, and this, I hear what this project wants to be, and I also want to say it should have the following quality. And then that DNA, that soulfulness, has a chance to come forward. So, when it comes to community or the society, together we always know more. But to create that, we need people who understand how to stand in a circle, how to empower each other without diminishing themselves individually in a process. And that's a precarious, wonderful tension and balancing act that takes practice. So, I will pause, and I will skip over the next two slides. One more, please. And come to this. We have a little bit of time when I would love now, first of all, I would like to invite Keiko to be the moderator who will facilitate the conversation between you and myself for the next period of time. But this is the time to ask if you have any questions of me, so we can carry on this conversation about collaboration a little bit further. How do you want to do that?
Thank you, Milenko. I know so many of you have taken Milenko's trainings in the past, and just want to uplift that beautiful message of the pomegranate method which really brings community together in a very powerful, and what I love about it is kind of the nonviolent, the ability to bring many disparate voices into the room, to create dignity and space for each one of those voices, regardless of whether that voice brings challenge into the room or collaboration into the room, that there is an intention to include all and to get to a point of flow. And so, just love to hear from you all about questions you have about how do you bring together disparate parts of the community to a common good and a common goal. And it looks like, Hannah, you've got a question there.
Is it working? Okay, cool. What do you do with people who don't want to be, like, they think their idea is the good idea and they're holding on to it and they aren't quite open to listen?
That happens all the time. What I've learned to do, and it's not easy, but I invite people to adopt a kind of a code of conduct for the duration of the project. When I started this work, at the first meetings that I facilitated, I was taken aback by how hostile some people were and how much blaming and complaining was going on. And I realized as an artist, I cannot create in that state of mind. Can the community? And I decided, no, that is not the case. So what I've done over the years is just simply, when somebody was disruptive to the possibility of collaborative process, I would ask them to stop doing that and focus on something else. So for example, instead of, I call it from opposition to proposition. Instead of just hearing what you oppose, can you go a little bit deeper and propose your solution? Just something as simple as that. Or I would ask people, are you willing for the duration of this process to change your mind in view of new information that just surfaced? And so softening that certainty that for some people in democratic processes right now has become normal. We are grumpy together, and that's what democracy is, right? We're just grumpy. And how to change that texture. One of the tools is simply invite people, what Lincoln would call the better angels of our nature. What is that part of us? And can we work from those parts together? Not that that in itself will diminish all the problems, but at least we give ourselves a chance to start understanding the possibilities and the joyfulness of the process. That's what our table did. We explored the joyfulness, the joy. That's missing from our routines. So in my training, we spend a lot of time in that aspect of the process to encourage collaboration and creativity rather than grumpiness and negativity.
My question is, most of the people that we know may not have the skill set that we need to be successful in a collaboration, and so then we are depending on or working with folks who don't understand the cultural preservation piece, but have these other really necessary skills. So how do we build trust, and who is accountable in a circle? When something goes wrong or when there's a deadline to meet or things that need to get done, who's accountable? So 2 questions, one about culture preservation and authenticity, and the other about who is accountable in the circle. Thank you.
Thank you for your big questions. Um, let's start by acknowledging that this is a really an interesting moment in our human history. You know that when I grew up in Slovenia, former Yugoslavia, it's a nation of 2 million people, their own language, and everybody was the same. Everybody looked the same. Even if we did not want to be the same, we were still the same, right? And then I felt as an artist, I need to open some of those boundaries that were making me just the same as everyone else. And the leaders promoted that idea, you know, collectivity. All of us live in those pockets of some kind or another. For some of us, those pockets are very defined, and for some, they're softer. But we all work with some biases that say, this is who I am, this is who we are, and my people are, right? And now think about this moment in our history where we are pushed to bump into each other, and we cannot just maintain that status anymore. So in Yugoslavia, that happened through terrible violence and war, completely unnecessary, but it pushed people apart. Your nation goes here, and this nation goes there. And I was shocked by that. I was surprised that the Yugoslav people didn't have enough wisdom to say, now we can combine our differences even more to create some new unity. It's complicated, and I think that there is two things happening, at least two major pockets of work happening at the same time. One is I need to claim who I am. And every group, especially groups that have been subdued and relegated to the periphery of the society, I fully understand that they should say, I'm here. We are here, and we need to be heard. And I feel that that needs to happen in our society right now. The other pocket is where something is trying to be born between all of us here. And then I am here, if I can now say, I want to call you to join me. I want to hear what you mean, but I'm here from your perspective. But in return, can you hear what I want to say? And let's see where it takes us. What I found is when we engage in that DNA, the soulfulness, is actually the same. The surfaces are different, but the soulfulness is the same. And so I find that we, as I said before in my talk, we don't take enough time to find those common beginnings. And we're stuck on superficial differences, which are important. I really, as an artist, I love differences. But I love even more the idea of collaborative democracy, where we learn how to offer those differences so we understand better what is happening in this time, what is happening to all of us, and therefore how to find a pathway into the future that works. So this kind of discussion can be a conference of hundreds of conferences, and we would never end. But for the sake of this today's spirit of talking about collaboration, I would just ask all of us to say, claim your individuality, claim your history, claim your culture, and then collaborate as an additional step that is needed for all of us to move forward.
Thank you for taking my question. How can we create indigenous people to work with corporate? What are your suggestions or thoughts? Is it possible? Thank you.
I don't know if it's possible. It is possible when people know that they are in a circle. It is not possible when people with a mindset of standing in a circle talk with people who are on top of pyramids. You know, I just watched a little bit of the Musk-Trump monologues. And I thought to myself, it would be really hard for me to collaborate with that mindset, because they were so certain, they were so fixed on the sense that they know best, because after all, look at us, how successful we are. I remember when I started the Pomegranate Center, it was at the same time when Microsoft produced its first batch of millionaires. And probably Bill Gates sent them out to make themselves useful to nonprofits. And 3 of them came by my office. And all 3 of these individuals had 3 minutes to give me before they injected what I should be doing with my nonprofit. In other words, they knew best. And I think that's probably the greatest enemy of collaboration, is that people in power, I find, have no interest to change the mindset because they would risk losing the power, right? It was the old mindset that gave them power. Why should I engage in something that erodes those foundations? And so I think that when I find those people, it's really hard to collaborate around anything, because I am bombarded with their monologues about how they see the world. And there's no invitation to say, wait a minute, and what do I see, right? There's none of what I've talked about. Having said all that, I know lots of business people, and I know lots of government leaders who are starting to understand that the idea of a circle better. And when that happens, possibilities are endless. So think about that. I've learned that I come to a point where, say, when I recognize collaboration is not possible, I don't want to waste my time anymore. But when I see even a glimpse of the possibility, I give myself to that conversation unconditionally. I would invite you to do the same.
Thank you. I believe you kind of answered it. I really liked your thought of finding a way to eliminate fixed ideas so that we can be open to collaboration. But we do live in a world of certain, like we as humans kind of are drawn to certainty. Even the great Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi said, only a Sith thinks in absolutes, which is in fact an absolute statement. And how do we, in a world where we really want to collaborate, how do we invite those with a fixed mindset to open that fixed mindset? How do we do that in such a way that we are inviting, attracting open mindsets as opposed to eliminating them from our circle?
Can you go back a couple of slides, please? This one. Thanks. So my experiment was to work with communities to do exactly what you're trying to do or you're asking about. And in other words, I was asking the question, under what conditions can we be useful to each other? And under what conditions can differences turn into insights rather than irritations, right? And because I'm an artist, maybe I think in terms of structures, I think in terms of processes. What are the steps of the journey? Like as an artist, I know I have certain steps. It starts with a hunch, an intuition that I need to anchor that, like a seed plants itself into a soil, and then I need to grow it, and eventually I need to explode it into the best form I can imagine, and then share it with the community. That's the journey. And based on that kind of a journey, my colleagues and I developed this, which is basically the essence of the training that I do. How to mimic that journey in a way now with lots of people. With the idea that at the end, all of those people may say, this is my project rather than Milenko's project or ACH project or whatever government agency or business is doing it. Under what conditions would they say, this is mine? Okay. So those are some of the rules of the engagement that I challenge myself with. What we discovered is that the best, most efficient way is to ask a lot of questions at the beginning, the poetry of beginning. All the partners need to agree to certain protocols, timetables, budgets, and so on. And if they do not, most likely later stages will suffer. So for example, I mentioned once I worked with an arts commission, and I realized by that time I was so naive and so innocent in my artistic identity that I never realized that other people may think of art differently from how I would. So this arts commission gave us money to create something, and they would ask me, so where is your art project? Where is it? We gave you money to create something. And I realized after I asked them that in their imagination, I would go to my studio, create something, and they would transport it to the park. And I was working on the assumption that we engage the community, we stand in a circle, and we define what is needed, and not through art, but through community needs. And what was needed was social spaces and stage for performances and picnic shelter. None of them made any sense to the Arts Commission. So the first step is to clarify those things. It was a harsh lesson for me to learn. I need to ask those questions at the beginning. How do you imagine art? Can you imagine it this way, that it's community-driven rather than genius artist-driven? Can you do that? And so, first step. Then invite convening group, invite ambassadors for the process from different pockets of the community, people who usually would not be at the table, and make an extra effort to invite them to the table. With their help, organize a community meeting with as many people. And I've run meetings discussing future community center with as large a group as we have today. And everybody speaks. So coming back a long way to your question, how do you prevent some people to take over? Well, there will still be people who would want to take over, but the process, the structure is such that you ask every person to give one sentence of how do they see this DNA, the soulfulness of the project. And what I've learned is, yes, it's really important for people to speak, but it's more important for people to hear what other people say, because they realize until that moment that surely everybody has the same idea as they have. And now suddenly you hear 80 ideas, and mine is just one of those. What now? What now, right? And it can be the most brilliant idea, the most opinionated idea, but you hear it in a context of many ideas rather than solo idea. So that's the essence of what we were exploring, my colleagues and I at Pomegranate Center, how to navigate through that tendency that few voices would dominate everything. So long answer to a short question, but I would encourage you to think of structures that invite many voices into the process and a facilitator who makes that possible.
Hello, my name is Alan. I was just curious because I've noticed that a lot of the questions being brought up is like, what if this person or what if this group? But we don't focus on like, well, what if we ourselves as individuals are coming with the fixed mindset? Because I know I can be very stubborn when I'm like, I have this idea, I want to follow this idea, and then it's really hard for people to convince me out of the idea. So what would you recommend? And I know you've given some tips, but like, how do we notice that within ourselves, and how can we work on being more open with working with other people and their ideas?
Practice collaboration in action. I think part of this is, I would encourage you to be in touch with your passionate idea. It's really important. But I would also encourage you to know that it's not the only idea that is the important one. And so therefore, allow yourself to say, I really care about this, and you say it, and then you step back and hear what other people are saying with the same passion. And then you have a choice to make a judgment, and you say, no, I don't like that. You know what psychologists call confirmation bias. I only like ideas that confirm what I already believe in. Or you can make a choice and say, can I modify my idea in such a way that that person's idea can live within my idea? Now, that's the beginning of collaboration. I have a saying that is like this: collaboration begins the moment I recognize other people's great ideas. So bring yourself to that moment. Okay, I care about something, but know that it's not the only care in the room, and allow to hear from others.
Hi, I'm Allie. How do you balance time in collaboration? Because we need more time to properly collaborate, but also we want to make progress with that. So how do you find that good balance between the time and collaboration?
I love that question. Here's what I found in my work with communities. If you drag the process on too long, people who should be at the table will stop coming, because there are people with 2 jobs and family duties. And so we made it a habit: no meeting longer than 2 hours and no process longer than 3 meetings. If it's more complex, then you break it down in a sequence of 3 meetings, but you give boundaries to the things. Therefore, the duty of people who are leading this process, who are orchestrating the process, is to ensure that those 2 hours are used to the best possible use, right? And they need to be well prepared. Keiko mentioned to me this morning how in a training I would say, imagine 50 hours for every hour of community meeting, of preparation time, to make it work. And that means knowing everything, scripting out like it's a TV show, except you don't know what people will say yet. But everything else needs to be prepared thoughtfully, and somebody needs to be in charge of the process. We encourage people, let's say that we here, decide to embark on a project together. In the first meeting, we would need to explain why this project matters, what are the boundaries, what are the criteria, and then I would ask the question, what ideas do you have for this project to succeed? And then ask everyone to offer one answer in one sentence, no more. And I've worked this with 150 people, and we were done ahead of time. But somebody had to manage that. And part of the secret is to create an environment where people say what they mean. If you say what you mean, it leads to doing what we say more easily later on. So it's inviting that integrity, that soulfulness, that DNA into the conversation. But you have so little time that all you give people is one sentence. And it's possible to do that. Now, having said that, there often are needed extra meetings on the side. I discourage that, to have the long conversations in large groups. But I would say something, but I see that by comments of some of you, that more discussion is needed about such and such and such. I would like to organize a smaller group. Can I see by show of hands who is interested? Let's meet 2 days from today or a week from today, find the time, and meet for 3 hours just to discuss that tiny little element. And sometimes you need to do that. I've learned about that. But for this journey to work, you cannot do that in large meetings. It needs to be consecrated with a small group.
Thank you. We're often asked to collaborate in settings that don't fit right, whether it feels like we're there to check a box or there's power dynamics with government or funders, things like that. Or we're, like you mentioned earlier, asked to answer questions that are different than the ones we would bring to the table. It feels like there's a tension in those settings where, like, we as individuals or organizations can't achieve our goals, or the funder, organizer, governor doesn't get their goals achieved. Do you have advice on communicating for, like, as an organization or as a sector as a whole, that a lot of the benefit of collaboratives are seen beyond the individual collaborative itself, like seen across multiple collaborative efforts where that change may not be realized in one collaborative body or process? If that makes sense.
Can you repeat one more time what you ended with so I can respond to that?
How do you advise on communicating as an organization or a sector as a whole that we're engaging to make change beyond what's happening in each individual collaborative effort?
You remember, I started my talk by saying we're in a wonderful, opportunistic moment in human history where something powerful is happening. I happen to believe that that something powerful is that we're in a kindergarten learning how collaboration works. So it starts with an attitude. You are an individual and you work with a few colleagues in a small organization. But I would encourage you to think, I'm learning about a mindset that is required for the future. I happen to believe that collaborative democracy encapsulate what we are learning about right now. So I would just encourage you, look at your small project as a mini lesson plan for learning these big things that are happening in our society. And then do your best to ask a question. What we're doing here with our organization, with our small effort, does it have qualities of collaboration wired into it so it can spill over the edges of our work into kind of the community? You're all leaders of different efforts. And everything that I said here, it's in everything that I said is implied this simple message. We're all learning a new mindset. And that mindset, in my words, is collaboration. What does it mean? How do I do it? So think of your work as practice. It's like a pianist would practice scales on a piano. You have a small meeting, staff meeting, practice collaboration. Start getting a feel for how does it feel to be open to other people's ideas and still feel in touch with oneself. Think about those kind of dynamics. And when you start thinking that you are a small part of a much larger game, you will not be alone. And you will not be separated. You will start finding the dance steps that are relevant to many more. And you can start exporting collaboration rather than your project. Thank you. Listen, this was fun for me. I don't know if it was fun for you, but thank you for thinking along with me into this important topic of what collaboration could mean for all of us and how it could impact our work together. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Milenko. It's always such a joy to listen to you, and at the heart of what you do is joy, as we mentioned earlier, and it's so important to center that in the hard work that you do and not forget that joy and artistry and playfulness are essential ingredients to collaborations.